but I'd like to change the tone a little bit and everything and say that this is not just a freaking medical marijuana issue and freaking getting high.
We have 13,000 over 13,000 medical cannabis patients in the state of Hawaii. If we assume 7 plants per patient, that's 91,000 plants statewide for our crop at this very moment. That's the current demand. If we have caregivers who are providing care for 25 patients each, we can have 520 caregivers.
And that is if you get over 1,000 plants, whatever dispensary you have, now the feds can step in. That's a federal offense. And no matter what you guys say or whatever the state says, the feds can say differently and it'll be a problem. So please consider that when you're thinking about the size of the dispensary.
I do think dispensaries need to be limited in number, but I think they need to be within reasonable distances.
1 dispensary wouldn't be enough. 10 would not be enough. I think we should have dispensaries in every town.
10 dispensaries, like I said before, yesterday, we'll create multimillionaires overnight. A good example is San Jose has the same amount of population as the island of Oahu. San Jose has roughly 80 dispensaries right now, and they're still growing at this point.
It's really hard to grow, to have a business like the size you guys are suggesting. If you're thinking just 10 dispensaries, if you add it up, a dispensary, if you have a guy just doing 10 minutes at the door, each person, they can only take care of 50 people a day. And that's a line, lined up outside. Only 50 people a day, and you got 13,000.
But the dispensaries should be the local growers.
We need to be able to form patient collectives to help alleviate these problems. Large dispensaries may have their place, but for the typical patient here on the Big Island, cooperatives would be most appropriate.
Please do not set it up as a big corporation-run enterprise. There's much interest throughout the Hawaiian Islands in home gardens and a permaculture lifestyle on a few acres, having a mix of fruit and nut-bearing trees, a variety of plants, and domestic animals. The addition of a few cannabis plants would help sustain the economic viability of such ecologically preferable small farm operations.
Second is outdoor versus indoor. I implore you to call out the difference. Outdoor, especially on the Big Island, they have a lot of room to provide for medicine. And it's using the sun and using the earth instead of using a carbon footprint.
If the big pharmaceutical or organizations take this away from the people, it will turn into what already exists in our society. And it's got to stop somewhere. When are we going to quit turning it over to the corporations and leaving it up to them to decide what is good for us, the people?
Create super dispensaries and you create super warehouses and those type of things. It's going to bring the prices up, and it's going to be very, very expensive, and you're going to still have a black market.
It's good. People talk about whether it's huge corporate or whatever, but I think that there's room for corporate. But I think that there needs to be room for everybody in the system, and let the system work it out. Allow the dispensaries to decide whose product or what product they can move or sell, as opposed to just one source or very few sources.
I think we need to develop a class of small, well-regulated medical cannabis farms. And secondly, we would create a class of specially qualified caregivers that would be able to take care of 25 patients at a time, anywhere in the state of Hawaii. And the example of how this might work is that a Big Island caregiver might register with a dispensary on Oahu, and then a patient on Oahu would visit that local dispensary, and the dispensary itself would connect the patient with the caregiver on the Big Island. And then the Big Island caregiver would begin shipping medicine on behalf of that patient to the dispensary in Oahu.
I think it would be interesting if we could move our products from here to other islands. At this point, I don't know how we would do this, but I mean, they want us, they want Molokai to produce electricity for Oahu. I think we ought to be able to produce, medicine for Oahu.
When we travel, we cannot leave our arthritis or our other illnesses at home. So it'd be nice if we could bring the medicine with us. Thank you.
Yeah.
And in terms of regulations, this would be a brand new industry that we would have to establish quality, safety, and security standards. Grower guidelines would have to compel strict record keeping among farmers. The farmers would be subject to inspection by regulators, of course.
Fostering the patient to grower model cutting out the bureaucracy, allowing farmers markets, those type of things I implore you to look at. That will keep the costs down.
The other thing is, what's critical is the doctor-dispensary relationship.
So, I mean, I'm lucky. I had a car accident that hurt my shoulder, so I had proof to get medical card here, but really it's for my insomnia, but they don't recognize that here. So I think it's important to recognize there's a lot of different reasons for people using cannabis.
I've actually traveled to Colorado. I researched their programs. California, I researched their programs. I think that this is the best way to do it, because if you have an industrial model, they have research and development monies that can help with a local people to define and refine strains and help the entire program to be local centric, as well as have the major input from the industrial complex.
Two mistakes that I've seen made in California and in Arizona. One thing that California did is they didn't regulate it enough, and they had dispensaries in neighborhoods, in houses, next to schools, making huge mistakes with where they let these dispensaries just pop up. They didn't regulate it enough as far as the zoning went, and that's something I think you need to make good note of. The other thing that Arizona did is it destroyed the caregivers. We first started out with caregivers there, and then when they allowed the dispensaries to open, they wiped out all the caregivers.
A couple of things, edibles, quality control, so you got to look at that. Lab testing, gas chromatography versus liquid chromatography, and then legal ramifications for a blue card holder. Patients must be protected under this law for testing for employment purposes and other things.
I think that you really need to look at protecting, patients' rights of employment. Nobody should lose their job because latent metabolites are found in their systems. We really need to look at protecting people's right to work, even if they're a medical marijuana patient.
I don't know if your commission is able to do anything about the costs of renewing your license, but it does prevent many people from getting a medical marijuana license because they can't afford the $200, especially now the lava's coming, is Zell. People are really suffering here with unemployment, and so we really need the cost to be brought down. If you need a prescription for something that the doctor can give you, it doesn't cost you $200 normally.
I don't want to see, I support this dispensaries, but I don't want to see a monopoly created that's going to price people like me out of the market and basically create two classes of citizens where poor people can't afford $300, $400, or $500 for something that costs $10, $20, or $30 to grow.
You guys have been looking at, we got markets out there, people are doing it, mistakes are being made, corrections are being made. To say that it's going to take a whole year to look at it, to set up a dispensary system, seems to be just putting it off further and further. Thank you.
And then the other thing is your dates of putting off another year for this dispensary. One of the saddest things that we deal with as providers is when somebody gives you a call and their friend has just been diagnosed and they're just about ready to go into radiation therapy or whatever. They have no ability to get it legally, so we all have to do what we have to do just to help take care of these people, and we have to risk our own futures to see that the real critically ill people that need it get it.
You present nothing but a sham and a farce until Josh Green decides to legalize it. He's got the control. You're here to hear our views, but you don't even have the acoustics to hear.
I want you to look into the issue of industrial, agricultural, food grade hemp. And I mean it. We could feed the pigs, we could feed the cows, we could feed the butterflies.
So I agree with everyone else about local control. We're out here by ourselves in the middle of the ocean. Some of us are just about ready to get cut off from the rest of the island. This volcano flow is after us, and I'm one of those lunatics. So, thank you.